They say the devil doesn't paint with words. He paints with color. And what if you've been wearing his art all along? Not by accident, not for style, but because someone wanted you marked, without you ever noticing. In the spiritual realm, colors aren't just aesthetics. They're language. They whisper allegiance. They signal access. They invite presence. You may think you're just choosing a shirt, but in the unseen world, you're choosing a side. Throughout history, colors have always spoken louder than words. In ancient temples, blue was for the heavens. In sacred rituals, red flowed like sacrifice. In royal courts, purple wasn't just for beauty. It was a symbol of spiritual rank. And in the shadows, in the forbidden forests, in candle-lit rooms where witches gathered and oaths were whispered, color became currency. Witchcraft, true witchcraft, never deals in obvious spells. It works in symbols, rhythms, shadows, and signals. It studies what moves beneath the surface, and it wears its power. C.S.Lewis once warned, "The magician's bargain is to surrender himself to power. In return, he becomes a slave." Today, modern culture has rewritten that bargain. It calls it fashion. It sells it as empowerment. It decorates it with runways and influencers and neon lights. But the spirit behind it? That hasn't changed. In the same way, a soldier puts on armor. A witch dresses with intention. Every cloak, every shade, every stitch has a frequency. And if you're unaware of what you're wearing, you might already be sending a signal to them. Because witches don't just cast spells with candles, they cast with color. And the devil? He doesn't need you to believe in witchcraft. He just needs you to agree with it, one thread at a time. You might say, it's just clothes. But some garments carry spirits. Some colors were chosen in covens long before they appeared in boutiques. Some designs were soaked in ritual before they were stitched into your sleeve. And no, not everything black is cursed. Not every red is evil. But in the hands of darkness, even beauty becomes a weapon. So today, we open the devil's palette. We reveal the 5 colors witches use to spiritually bind, track, and influence. You may find you've worn them, loved them, felt different in them, and that was never by chance. Before we begin, remember this. This is not about legalism. This is not about fear. This is about discernment. When God clothed his priests, he gave them colors with meaning. When the enemy imitates holiness, he gives colors that confuse. And if you've been feeling unexplainable fatigue, strange dreams, emotional instability, confusion about your identity, the answer may not just be in your habits, it may be in your closet. So, open your mind, and more importantly, guard your soul, because what covers you controls you. And now, we look at the first shade on the devil's brush. Black. Not the kind in ink or charcoal dust, but the ritual black, soaked in centuries of spiritual concealment. It's the color of midnight covens, velvet curtains drawn tight, and faces lit only by flame. Witches didn't choose black for trend. They chose it for power. Because black doesn't just hide things, it absorbs them. In occult practice, black is the cloak of rebellion. Against light, against order, against truth. It is used in rituals to mask identity, to attract spirits of secrecy, domination, and seduction. In witchcraft, wearing black isn't fashion, it's alignment. And alignment is everything. A young girl once confessed that every time she wore black, she felt bold, untouchable, but also angry, disconnected, cold. Not cold in the room, cold in the soul. Why? Because color speaks, and black whispers, "I am hidden. I am unavailable. I bow to no light." C.S. Lewis warned that rebellion doesn't always roar. Sometimes it disguises itself in elegance. He called it the silent retreat from joy. And that's exactly what black becomes when it's worn not for mourning or modesty, but for identity, a spiritual mirror of the enemy's own fall, from glory to shadow. Jet black is used in witch ceremonies to cloak intentions. Black candles, black veils, black robes, each absorbs light, just like rebellion absorbs truth, twisting it into isolation and spiritual numbness. But perhaps most dangerous is how normalized it has become. Goth fashion, dark aesthetic, witchcore. What once marked the sacred dark has now been rebranded as chic, no longer feared, now glorified. But hell never needed your fear. It only ever needed your agreement. Wearing black with the wrong spirit becomes a declaration. I will not be seen. I will not be held accountable. I belong to no one. It's independence masquerading as style. But spiritually, it becomes invitation, because darkness is drawn to darkness. The cloak of black can quickly become a net, binding the soul to depression, feeding bitterness, nurturing a quiet pride that says, "I don't need the light." But that's the oldest lie of all. If you found yourself feeling drained, alone, or restless when dressed in black, pay attention. Ask, why do I feel stronger in this? Who do I become when I wear this? Clothes do not lie, they reveal. Red is primal. It is the heartbeat of the earth, the first smear of blood in battle, the kiss of temptation. It is also one of the oldest tools of witchcraft. Crimson is not worn casually in the spirit realm. It is invoked for lust, for rage, for blood offerings that bind the one who gives. Witches have long used red to awaken desire, to fuel conflict, to call upon spirits of chaos, passion, and destruction. They anointed stones with blood, traced circles on the ground, bathed objects in sacrifice, not because blood is violent, but because blood is covenant. And red, when worn with the wrong spirit, becomes a living agreement. C.S. Lewis once observed that sin, when left unchecked, begins to wear a crown, and red is the false crown. The illusion of power, the appearance of royalty, but beneath it, bondage. Crimson also appears in spells of attraction, not love. Control. It is the spirit of Jezebel wrapped in silk. It says, "Look at me," but it hides the chain beneath the beauty. It manipulates attention. It feeds the ego. It commands, but never commits. In many occult rituals, red is used to seal contracts with demons, with land spirits, with one's own soul. The logic is always the same. If I give blood, I gain power. But Lewis warned, power without holiness is merely possession in disguise. The most seductive aspect of red is its versatility. Worn in passion, it burns. Worn in bitterness, it blazes. Worn in rebellion, it draws blood. And some don't even notice. They say, "Red makes me feel alive." But sometimes, it's not you that's waking up. It's what's attached to you. Do you feel more aggressive in red? Do your thoughts shift? Does your body language change? That's no accident, because color, when spiritually charged, shapes the soul. So the next time you reach for crimson, ask, am I wearing passion or pact? Is this a reflection of love or an echo of sacrifice? Because in the hands of witches, red has always meant one thing: exchange. And some exchanges are irreversible. Purple once belonged to kings. It was rare, regal, reserved, draped across thrones, woven into priestly garments. But not all who wear purple serve the kingdom of light. In the realm of witchcraft, purple has been hijacked, twisted, used to imitate spiritual authority, without submission to the one who gives it. Witches revere purple as a channeling color, a hue of mystic knowledge, false enlightenment, and psychic elevation. It represents the throne, but not the king. The spirit of this color isn't always evil, but when claimed apart from righteousness, it becomes pretension wrapped in velvet. In rituals, purple cloaks are worn by high-ranking occult leaders. They claim insight, they offer illumination. But what they bring is imitation, a mimicry of holiness. It is the spirit of pride, dressed in elegance. C.S.Lewis warned us of this deception. He wrote that pride is the anti-God state, the complete spiritual cancer. And purple, when worn with that spirit, says one thing: I crown myself. It is the Luciferic impulse, the desire to ascend, to claim light without obedience. There are stories of seers who dressed in violet to merge with the divine, but instead they were met by familiar spirits, not divine beings, but shadows that wear light like costume. And this is the danger. Spiritual counterfeit is always dressed to impress. Modern fashion now floods the world with deep purples, luxury lines, glamour shoots, ego-boosting silhouettes. But the color retains its weight. When worn for vanity, dominance, or manipulation, purple becomes a false flag, declaring, I am higher than I am. Have you ever felt unusually proud, aloof, or superior in deep purple? That's not a random mood. It may be a borrowed atmosphere, one that doesn't belong to you, but was invited by the garment. Because spiritual deception doesn't always feel dark. Sometimes it feels glorious, and that's why it's so dangerous. Be cautious of what exalts you. Ask, is this reverence or rivalry with God? Is this royalty or rebellion dressed up? Because when purple is worn without humility, it stops being majestic and starts being manipulative. Green is the color of growth, of leaves, fields, healing. But in the world of witchcraft, not all things green are life-giving. Some are deceiving, some are binding, and some are cursed. In many old witch traditions, green symbolized more than nature. It was the mark of agreement with the earth, not as creation, but as a force to be obeyed, even worshipped. Witches didn't just honor nature, they made pacts with it. They offered blood into soil, buried hair in moss, chanted in groves, calling on spirits said to dwell within roots, vines, and stones. This wasn't admiration, it was allegiance. And when green became the robe for such rituals, it carried the energy of ancient jealousy, a twisted form of reverence that leads to obsession, control, and even possession. C.S. Lewis warned of man's fascination with the raw, natural, unfiltered power from the earth that bypasses God. He called it a spiritual danger. To seek nature's secrets for power, not praise, is to become its slave. And that's what this green becomes in the hands of witches. Not Eden's peace, but poison dressed as harmony. You may have seen it, that eerie, mossy shade of green, the kind found in folklore depictions of dryads and dark elves, the robes of hedge witches, the mist-covered leaves in graveyard spellwork. It's not just aesthetic, it's an invocation. Many wear green today to feel earth-connected. But the danger comes when connection becomes dependence, when the soul whispers, nature is all I need. That's when the spirit behind the color takes root. Not growth, but grip. Have you felt strangely pulled when walking alone in forests? Heard whispers when there's no one near? Felt sorrow or seduction beneath the trees? You may have brushed against a spiritual agreement you didn't make with words, but with what you wore and how you walked. In modern witch circles, forest green is still used to bind identity to land. It is believed to anchor the soul to spirit realms hidden in the wild. But what's often unseen is the consequence, the inability to leave, the feeling of being watched, dreams of vines wrapping around your limbs, pulling you back. Green, like all colors, is not evil in itself, but the spirit behind it matters. When green is worn with a heart of envy, pride, or power-seeking, it becomes the robe of the Forest Pact, a contract signed in whispers, rooted in rebellion, fertilized by fear. White, the color of light, of innocence, of sacred robes, the garment of angels and of brides. But not all who wear white walk in the light. In the realm of witchcraft, white has a double meaning. It pretends to purify, while it quietly possesses. Witches who call themselves light workers or white witches wear pale robes not to honor God, but to mask darkness in aesthetics. They deal in crystals, energy flows, elemental spirits, and cloak it all in purity theater. But beneath the softness is something hollow. C.S.Lewis warned us of this very illusion. The greatest evil is not done in those sordid dens, but in clean, carpeted offices by men with calm voices. Evil rarely screams anymore. It whispers through silk. In the spiritual world, pale white can become the costume of spiritual mimicry. It says, "I am clean, I am good, I am enlightened." But its foundation is self-righteousness, not redemption. True holiness costs something. It is not worn, it is lived. But witches have long understood that appearance confuses, and confusion delays discernment. They perform rituals in white veils, chant incantations in white lace, draw sigils in chalk, dance in moonlight with faces veiled in silk. To the untrained eye, it looks like peace. To the spirit aware, it reeks of control. In ancient Babylonian rites, priests of false gods wore white to simulate divine favor. In secret societies, white gloves hide hands that curse while appearing clean. And in New Age circles, white is used to channel what they call higher vibrations. But who defines higher? And who's speaking through the silence? Have you ever worn pale white and felt weightless, but not in a holy way? Detached, drained, haunted. Some garments do not carry blessing. They carry void. The woman who wore a vintage white dress and could never sleep peacefully again. The child who painted their room white and began hearing whispers. The mirror framed in white wood that always felt colder than it should. These are not stories. They are symptoms, because sometimes white doesn't mean holy, it just means empty. When you wear white, ask, is this a reflection of God's righteousness or a mask of my own? Because in the end, pale white can either be the light of the Lamb or the veil of a ghost. You've seen the palette now: black, red, purple, green, white, not just colors, but spiritual codes. In the hands of witches, these shades become rituals. In closets around the world, they become agreements, silent ones, unspoken ones, but still binding. The enemy doesn't need your permission. He only needs your participation. And sometimes, all it takes is what hangs on a hanger. You may feel a heaviness now, a realization, a memory of a jacket, a dress, a pair of boots that made you feel different. Not beautiful, not whole, but powerful, in a way that came with shadows. That's not coincidence. C.S.Lewis once reflected that evil never announces itself with horns. It slips in quietly, through ideas, through aesthetics, through identity worn like clothing. That's why some garments don't just dress the body, they shape the soul. But there is good news. You can break the bond. You don't need to burn your whole wardrobe, but you do need to examine it spiritually. Ask the Holy Spirit to walk with you as you open each drawer, not with paranoia, but with discernment, not with superstition, but with wisdom. Ask, does this glorify God or glorify me? Do I feel closer to Him when I wear this, or further? Does this garment carry peace or disturbance? If you feel a check in your spirit, that's your answer. If something always draws attention but leaves you feeling spiritually exhausted, that's a red flag. If you wear it and notice an increase in lust, anger, apathy, or isolation, that's the garment talking. And when you find something that needs to go, don't donate it, don't pass it on, destroy it. Some garments aren't just worn, they're assigned, and those assignments end with your authority. Speak it aloud if you must. This no longer has power over me. I renounce every agreement this represented. I break every curse tied to this color, this symbol, this spirit. I am covered in light. I am dressed in righteousness. I belong to Christ alone. When you spiritually cleanse your wardrobe, you cleanse your environment. When your garments are submitted to God, your presence shifts. Demons don't recognize your brand. They recognize your alignment. So choose light. Wear truth. Let your garments prophesy purity, not rebellion. Let your closet be a chapel, not a trap. The devil has a palette, but so does God, and His is painted in righteousness and sealed in blood that sets captives free. You were not made to wear darkness. You were made to reflect glory.